He met her on a Thursday night. It was one of those charity galas that look glamorous on Instagram, but feel, in real life, like a business meeting wrapped in sequins. Soft jazz, glittering chandeliers, the smell of perfume and money hanging in the air. His name was Charles Amo, 32 years old, a self-made tech billionaire whose face was constantly splashed across business magazines and gossip blogs. He was used to the whispers when he walked into a room, used to the looks, used to the women who suddenly became extra friendly the moment they recognized his name. That night he was exhausted. The company had just gone public. Reporters kept calling, board meetings back to back. The gala was supposed to be a simple appearance. Smile, shake hands, make a donation, leave. Then he saw her, the woman who watched him. She was standing near the back, not trying to be seen, but not exactly hiding. A simple black dress, no dramatic jewelry, a faint lipstick that suggested she'd gotten ready in a hurry. The kind of beauty you notice twice, first as pretty, then as actually really striking. Her name was Haley, 40, a marketing manager at a mid-level firm, invited through a friend of a sponsor. But what made her stand out wasn't her dress or her face. It was the way she was looking at him. Not like a fan, not like a woman dazzled by wealth, more like someone observing a solution to a problem. They crossed paths near the drinks table. He reached for sparkling water just as she was reaching for the same bottle. "You can have it," she said, smiling, fingers brushing back a stray curl from her forehead. "We can share," he replied, half joking. She laughed softly. "Then we'd totally have to buy the bottle dinner first." They both smiled. The ice cracked a little. Two people, very different midnights. They didn't click instantly. It was gradual, like a dimmer switch on a light. He found out she was 40 when he guessed 32, and she raised an eyebrow. "You're a terrible liar," she teased. "I'm actually very good," he grinned. "Just not at guessing ages, apparently." 40, she said finally. He studied her again. "You wear it well." She shrugged. "Tell my gynecologist. She keeps reminding me my ovaries aren't impressed with how well I wear it." The joke hung in the air, heavier than it sounded. He changed the subject. Work, Lagos traffic, the ridiculousness of people who posted photos of their food like it was a UNESCO site. She was sharp, funny, a little tense beneath the humor. He didn't know that she had cried in her car earlier that day, after yet another fertility consult. He didn't know about the failed IVF cycles, the miscarriages, the relationships that collapsed because people got tired of trying. He didn't know she'd stopped going to baby showers. He just knew that, in a room full of people who wanted something from him, she spoke to him like he was just a man with a drink in his hand. So when the gala ended and she lingered near the exit, he surprised himself. "Can I give you a ride?" he asked. She hesitated. "I don't live far. I'll grab a cab." "It's safer if I drop you," he said. "No strings attached." She smiled a small, tired smile. "You say that now." The one night, in the car, the small talk shrank. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It felt oddly charged. "You really don't look 32, she said suddenly, watching the city lights blur past. He glanced at her. "Is that good or bad?" "You look older, not in your face, in your eyes." "That's what corporate life does to you," he joked. She was quiet for a moment, then said in a low voice, "You know what scares me? My body's clock ticking louder than anything in my life. I don't hear promotions or vacations anymore. I just hear time." He turned, surprised by the rawness. "I'm sorry," he said softly. She laughed, but it cracked. "See? I'm oversharing. This is why I'm single at 40. "No," he replied. "This is why you're human." Their eyes met. The moment stretched. He should have said goodnight when they reached her gate. He knew that. He should have let her go, kept the night as a kind story of two strangers having a real conversation. Instead, when she hesitated with her hand on the car door, he heard himself say, "Do you want to grab a drink? I know a quiet place just 10 minutes away." She looked at him, searching his face. There was too much tiredness in her life, too much medical language, too many tears in clinic bathrooms. For once, she wanted to feel like a woman, not a walking, aging womb. "Okay," she whispered. The bar was dim, with low music and warm light. They drank slowly, talked about everything and nothing, her favorite childhood cartoon, his worst boarding school memory, the first cheap phone he'd coded an app on. At some point, her hand brushed his. Neither of them pulled away. When they finally ended up in a hotel room, it wasn't wild or cinematic. It was clumsy in that painfully human way, the way grief and desire sometimes blur together. He was respectful. He asked if she was sure. She nodded, eyes glassy, fingers trembling just a little as she undid the buttons of his shirt. He used protection. He always did. Habit, responsibility, caution. When they were done, he tied the condom, wrapped it in tissue, and tossed it into the small trash bin inside the bathroom. He washed his hands, splashed water on his face, stared at himself in the mirror. "What are you doing, Charles?" But when he walked back into the room, she was curled up under the sheet, looking strangely small. He lay beside her. "Do you regret this?" she whispered. "Do you?" he asked. A beat of silence. "No," she sighed. "I just wish my life was simpler." He didn't have an answer for that. At some point, they fell asleep. By morning, it felt fragile, almost unreal. She dressed quietly. He offered breakfast. She gently declined. "Let's just keep this as a good night," she said at the door. "No need to complicate it." "Can I at least get your number?" he asked. She hesitated, then forced a smile. "I'd rather we don't try to turn this into something it wasn't." And then she was gone. He left a generous tip for housekeeping, walked out, and mentally filed the entire night under "Don't repeat." 1 year later. Life moved quickly. His company expanded to other countries. He did interviews, signed documents, attended more boring galas. He dated casually, nothing serious. He thought of her sometimes, usually in passing, when someone mentioned being 40, or when he saw a woman blink too fast to hide tears while holding someone else's baby. But that was it. No calls, no messages. Just that one night, then distance. Then, one humid Tuesday afternoon, his assistant walked into his office, face pale. "Sir, there's a court document here. It was served to reception." "Court?" He frowned, taking the envelope. "From who?" "Family court," she said. "It, mentions your name." He slid it open, eyes scanning the lines. "Notice of paternity proceeding." For a moment, the words didn't settle. Then his brain snapped into focus. "What?" he murmured. The document stated that a woman named Harley Adam was alleging that he was the father of her 3-month-old baby and seeking child support, legal recognition, and backdated pregnancy-related expenses. He read it twice. "That's impossible," he said flatly. His assistant shifted awkwardly. "Should I get your lawyer?" "Yes. Now." The baby, the story, the shock. The first time he saw Harley again was in the waiting area of the family court 2 weeks later. She looked different. There were deep shadows under her eyes. Her hair was tied back in a rough bun. In her arms, she carried a tiny baby girl, maybe 3 months old, with a full head of soft curls and a small pink bow. For a moment, he just stared. She glanced up and froze. Charles," she breathed. "Harley," he said quietly. They stood in silence, the air between them thick with everything they hadn't said for a year. His lawyer cleared his throat. "Mr. Charles, let's sit." They sat on opposite sides of the room. The baby began to fuss. Harley whispered, rocking her gently. Her face, even exhausted, softened as she looked down at the child. Charles felt something twist inside him. An old, familiar ache he rarely admitted. He did want children someday. A family, something beyond spreadsheets and stock prices. But not like this, not in a courtroom, being accused of something that didn't even make sense. He looked at the baby. She was beautiful, but she didn't look anything like him. In the hearing, the judge, calm, composed, went over the basics. Mr. Charles, you are alleged to be the biological father of baby K. The mother states she conceived after a single encounter with you, approximately 1 year and 3 months ago. Do you deny paternity? Yes, Your Honor, he said firmly. I do. We were together one time. I used protection. The judge nodded, face neutral. The court will order a DNA test to establish paternity. Until then, we will not make any permanent rulings. Ms. Harley, do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, she replied, voice trembling. He turned to look at her. Her eyes were shiny with unshed tears, but there was something else, fear, desperation. The judge continued, We will arrange for testing at an accredited clinic. Both parties will be notified of the date. The hearing ended quickly. They filed out in tense silence. Outside, in the corridor, he approached her. Why? He asked quietly. Why would you do this? She swallowed, shifting the baby on her hip. Charles, Her voice cracked. I didn't come here to ruin you. But you're accusing me of being a father to a child that's not mine, he said. You know what that does to my name? Her eyes filled. For the first time, he saw not manipulation, but total exhaustion. I just wanted my daughter to have a chance, she whispered. That doesn't explain this, he said sharply, gesturing to the court door. She winced, clutching the baby a little tighter. Please, she said, just do the test. After that, if you never want to see me again, I'll understand. He stared at her for a long moment, then turned and walked away. The clinic smelled like antiseptic and air conditioning. He sat in a private room, a nurse wrapping a tourniquet around his arm, sliding the needle in smoothly. Small pinch, she said. All done. He signed the forms, confirmed his ID. When he stepped into the hallway, he saw Adeyeze in another room through the glass, the nurse pricking the baby's heel to collect a blood sample. The baby wailed, tiny limbs flailing. Harley whispered frantically, trying to soothe her. For a moment, something inside him softened again. The baby had no idea what any of this meant. No idea her life was already entangled with courtrooms and accusations. He left without speaking to them. The wait for the results was agony. His PR team was on high alert. Rumors were already circulating on social media. Someone had gotten hold of the court filing. Blogs were hinting that a certain tech billionaire had a secret baby. His mother called him, voice tight. Charles, what is this I'm reading? It's not true, he said. We're doing a test. There was a long pause on the line. Just remember, she said quietly, children are blessings, no matter how they come. He hung up, feeling more unsettled than before. The envelope arrived 3 weeks later, delivered by his lawyer, who placed it on the table between them. Results from the accredited lab, the lawyer said. I haven't opened it yet. I thought we should do it together. Charles nodded, heart hammering harder than he cared to admit. The lawyer slid a finger under the flap, pulled out the document, and read silently. Charles watched his face. The small exhale told him before the words did. Mr. Charles, the lawyer said, looking up, you are not the biological father of the child. The room seemed to tilt slightly. He took the paper with shaking hands and read it himself. Probability of paternity, 0.00%. He let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Relief crashed over him, sharp, almost painful. But under it, something else simmered. Anger, confusion, a bitter taste he couldn't name. What happens now? He asked. We'll return to court, the lawyer said. Present the result. The case against you will be dismissed. Any request for support or recognition from you will be thrown out. Legally, you're cleared. Legally, he repeated. But emotionally, it didn't feel that simple. The second court date was shorter. The judge reviewed the lab report, adjusted her glasses, and spoke plainly. The DNA analysis is conclusive. Mr. Charles is not the biological father of baby K. This case is dismissed with prejudice. Ms. Harley, the court advises that you seek legal counsel regarding the next steps for establishing paternity, if desired. Harley's face crumpled for a split second. Relief and devastation tangled together. She clutched the baby to her chest, as if afraid the world would take her away. Charles stood very still, jaw clenched. When they stepped out into the hallway, reporters were waiting outside the main gate, cameras poised. Their lawyers hurried them through a back exit, but in the narrow alley behind the courthouse, he stopped. "Harley," he called softly. She turned, eyes red. The baby was sleeping now, her cheek pressed against her mother's chest. "I didn't lie," she said before he could speak. "I mean, not the way you think." His voice was low, controlled. "You took me to court for a child that's not mine. How is that not lying?" She flinched. Tears spilled over. "I was desperate," she whispered. "You don't understand what it's like to sit in a doctor's office at 40 and be told your chances are shrinking every month, to watch all your friends post pictures of their babies and pretend you're happy for them while you feel like something inside you is dying." "That doesn't give you the right to drag someone into this," he said. "To put my life, my name, through this circus." "You think I wanted this?" She shot back suddenly, voice breaking. "You think I wanted tabloids calling me a gold digger? My pastor pulling me aside? My mother asking me who the father is over and over?" She looked like she was unraveling. "I didn't plan to call you," she continued, tears dripping off her chin. "After that night, I told myself it was just one night. Then I missed my period. I did the math. The dates matched. I thought, it must be him." He blinked. "I used protection." Her gaze flashed with something like shame. "I know," she whispered. "I know what you did. But do you know how many times I'd heard stories about women who still got pregnant, condoms failing? I thought maybe I was finally lucky." He stared at her, trying to fit the pieces together. "So you just assumed?" he said. "You didn't consider anyone else?" Her shoulders slumped. "There was someone," she admitted quietly. "An old situation that overlapped, just once. It wasn't serious. I pushed it out of my mind because I didn't want it to be him. I wanted it to be you. You were safer, stable, the father my child deserved." There it was. Not romance, not even greed in the simple sense, a calculated kind of hope that looked, from where he stood, a lot like betrayal. "You wanted my name," he said slowly. "My money, my reputation. I wanted my daughter to have opportunities I never had," she said. "Good schools, no landlord threatening to throw us out, health insurance that doesn't make me choose between rent and medicine. And you were willing to pin her on a man who wasn't her father," he replied. She opened her mouth, then closed it. There was no clever answer to that. For weeks after the case was dismissed, the story trended online. Billionaire vindicated in paternity scandal. Woman accused of trapping tech mogul with baby. Comment sections were brutal. Some called her a criminal, a gold digger, a disgrace to women everywhere. Others called him reckless, careless. What do you expect from a billionaire sleeping around? His PR team handled the media. Legal teams discussed whether to sue her for defamation or malicious prosecution. "You have a strong case," his lawyer said. "You can make an example of her. This kind of thing damages men in your position." His mother listened quietly as they laid out the options at her dining table one Sunday afternoon. When the lawyers left, she poured him tea and sat opposite him, studying his face. "You're very quiet," she said. "I'm tired," he replied. "Of what? Court? Gossip?" she asked. He stared into his cup. "Of being seen as a wallet with legs." She reached out and touched his hand. "Money makes you a target, but it doesn't have to make you hard." He looked up, frustrated. "She tried to trap me, Mummy. She dragged my name into the mud for a child that's not even mine." "Yes," his mother said softly. "What she did was very wrong. But let me ask you this. Did that baby choose any of this?" He thought of the tiny girl, crying as they took blood from her heel, sleeping against her mother's chest in that courthouse hallway. "No," he admitted. You can sue the mother if you want, his mother said. You'll probably win, but make sure you're doing it for justice, not just for revenge. Sometimes a court case leaves everyone poorer, no matter the judgment. He sighed. So what, I just do nothing? She smiled sadly. Sometimes, nothing is choosing to walk away. He didn't sue her. His lawyers were startled. His board raised eyebrows. Some of his friends thought he was being naive. Bro, you're encouraging this nonsense, one of them said. Next person will just think, if it doesn't work, he'll forgive. It's not forgiveness, Charles replied. It's refusal to let this define me. He strengthened his personal boundaries, became more guarded with his private life, started seeing a therapist to unpack the anger and distrust that had begun to harden inside him. Sometimes, in quieter moments, he wondered about Harley and the baby. On the other side of town, Harley's world had shrunk. People talked. Not everyone said it to her face, but she could feel the judgment. She lost her job, officially due to downsizing, but she knew her public court case hadn't helped. She moved to a smaller apartment. Her parents were disappointed. Her friends were divided. Some were sympathetic, others quietly distanced themselves. But every night, when she watched her daughter sleep, tiny fingers curled around hers, the noise of the world faded a little. She named her daughter Muna. She eventually went to court again, this time to compel a DNA test from the man she'd prayed wasn't the father. The results came back. He was. He was angry too, less wealthy, less polished, but just as stunned and resentful. They argued, they fought in mediation. But slowly, painfully, some kind of arrangement formed. Child support, scheduled visits, awkward co-parenting, and Harley carried an extra weight inside her, guilt she couldn't fully outrun. Not because Charles wasn't the father, that turn of fate had in some twisted way protected her daughter from a lifetime of being that billionaire's scandal baby, but because she had let desperation blur the line between seeking help and using someone, between hope and manipulation. 2 years after the court case, they ran into each other again. It was at a children's library, of all places. A literacy charity had invited Charles to fund a new reading corner. Harley had come for story time with Muna, now a lively 3-year-old who loved picture books and asked too many questions. He was standing near the entrance, talking with the program director, when a little girl broke free from her mother's hand and ran straight into him. "Sorry," she squealed, stumbling back. He caught her gently by the shoulders, steadying her. "It's okay," he said, smiling automatically. "You're faster than a rocket, you know that?" She giggled. "Muna!" a familiar voice gasped. He looked up. Harley stood a few steps away, frozen, a stack of children's books in her hand. For a moment, time folded in on itself. Muna turned to her mother. "Mummy, I didn't fall." "That's good, baby," Harley managed, voice thin. She looked at Charles. "We didn't know you'd be here." "I was invited as a donor," he said. "You?" "Story time," she replied. "We come here on Saturdays." Awkward silence stretched. Muna tugged at her mother's dress. "Mummy, who is this uncle?" Harley swallowed. "He's someone I used to know." Charles's chest tightened unexpectedly. He crouched to Muna's level. "Hi, Muna. I'm Charles." Les? She repeated carefully. "Do you like books?" "I love books," he said. "You?" She nodded so hard her bow bounced. "I like the one with the big elephant that can fly, but it doesn't know it can fly, but later it flies, and everyone says, 'Wow.'" He laughed despite everything. "That sounds like a very important elephant." Her eyes lit up. "Yes!" "Okay, bookworm," Harley said gently. "Let's not disturb Uncle. Go and sit on the mat. Story time is starting." Muna ran off. The air thickened again. "She's beautiful," he said quietly. "Thank you," Harley replied, eyes softening as she watched her daughter sit cross-legged with other children. "How are you?" he asked, surprising himself. She exhaled. "Learning to live with my choices. You?" "Same," he said. They stood side by side, watching the librarian open a big, colorful book and begin to read aloud. The children leaned forward, captivated. I was angry with you for a long time, he said, eyes on the kids. I felt used, humiliated. You had every right to, she murmured. I still don't excuse what you did, he continued. Taking me to court like that, it wasn't fair. Not to me, not to her. She nodded, blinking fast. I know. I think about it every day. Not as a scandal, as a mirror. And I don't always like what it shows me. He glanced at her. You were desperate, he said. Desperation doesn't make it right, but it explains part of it. She wiped the corner of her eye quickly. Sometimes I wish my longing for a child had stopped before it hurt other people. Would you give her back? He asked quietly, nodding toward little Muna, now laughing at a funny voice the librarian was making. She choked out a wet laugh. Never. Then you live with the mess and try to do better, he said. She turned to him. And you? Did this change how you see, well, all women? He thought of the therapist's office, the questions about trust, the walls he'd built around himself. At first, yes, he admitted. I started seeing every woman as a potential lawsuit. He gave a humorless smile. But therapy is expensive, so I'm trying to make it worth it. She actually laughed at that, a small surprise sound. I'm sorry, Charles, she said again, more steadily now. Not because you're rich, not because you're famous, just as one human to another. I dragged you into a pain that was mine to carry. He looked at her for a moment, then nodded. I can't forget it, he said. But I also don't want to be angry forever. A silence passed between them, not empty this time, but heavy with a strange, fragile understanding. The story time ended. Children erupted in claps. Muna ran back to her mother.